Hello, and welcome to the meditation conversation. I am your special guest host, Michael Massey.
Batman.
Slash Batman. And this is for episode 200 of the meditation conversation. And so I do have, for her second grand appearance as a guest on this show, I have Kara Gooden.
Yay! Did you say Gooden?
I did.
Was I not supposed to call you out on that?
No, you weren't.
It's actually Goodwin.
Goodwin.
Yes.
Goodwin, yes.
But Gooden, that could, maybe I should change it.
I don't
Gooden. Carrot Gooden.
You'd be popular in certain areas of the country.
Yeah, there we go.
All right. Well, okay, so here we are on, is today the 8th or 9th?
8th.
Today is the 8th, September 8th, recording episode 200. And it seems like, it doesn't feel like it was that long ago we were doing this for episode 100.
I know, it really doesn't.
I was tripping out. I'm like, wait a second. It's like the math didn't work out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, have you been doing 3 podcasts a day or something?
I know.
It's really weird, isn't it?
I know. As I remember when it started getting into like the 170s, I was like, how am I in the 170s already? And I think maybe I think I didn't say anything right at the time, but I've been kind of like, hey, we've got the 200th coming up like quickly.
Yep.
And we got to, collaborate and see what we want to do for it.
So here we are collaborating. And so we thought we would do our own kind of funny FAQ where we're just going to share with each other and let y'all listen in as a couple of the most common questions that we get asked, each of us respectively. And then before we do that, though, for my sake and the listeners too, what do you have to say about the last 100 episodes? What has is there anything that you'd like to share about what this has meant for you or how it's evolved? Or
yeah, that's a good question. It's been really interesting because it's gained a lot of momentum. So for one thing, I have a lot of requests to be on the podcast, which is nice. That's nice. And that's just come with time, but there are far too many to be able to honor all of them. But and I love hearing from people. So I'll get like people who send me emails to talk about, that they've discovered the podcast and what it's meant to them. Or just, people will, I'll always not advertise it, but I'll post whenever there's a new episode, I'll post it on Instagram and Facebook, and people will message me on there or put in the comments about what they really liked about the episode. So I love that. I love to, because it's kind of like, I just put it out, it's like I have the interview and I edit it and then I put it out there. And so it really means a lot because it just sort of like goes out and I don't necessarily then think about people listening to it, because there's such amazing conversations for me that I get so much out of, and then I get to listen to them again when I edit. So then to like get that full circle or where people are like, wow, I really enjoyed that particular conversation and it triggered this for me, or it, this particular thing I really needed to hear at that time. Sometimes people will talk about how, they've asked the universe a question and then they've heard that then it ends up being something that we talk about in the episode. And it seems like the answer to the question that they put out, and that it's just it means so much. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. for sure. And you've had a notable guest, some notable guests, but not the
Yeah.
least of which was Neil Donald Walsh,
Yeah.
author of the Conversations with God series.
Hmm.
And so that must have been a highlight for you as well.
Yeah. I loved having him on. That was a great conversation. Recently had Barbara Lamb. She was
Yeah.
another kind of legendary guest, and Caroline Corey.
Have
I
you
don't know.
released that one yet?
I haven't
No.
as of now. I don't know if it'll go out before this or not. But that I had a great conversation with her and can't wait to get that out.
Yeah.
Ruben Langdon, Adam Apollo, um, and now I feel really like, who am I not saying?
Oh,
But
and Michael Massey.
Michael Massey,
Yeah.
yes,
Of
course,
did a couple with that guy.
yes,
Uh-huh.
those are always great.
Try to be. All right. Well, um, and should we jump into our little our FAQ?
Yes.
Okay. Unless there was something else you'd like to share. Or?
No, I think that's good.
Okay. Well, should I break the ice?
Sure.
Since you just did some question and or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. So, so one of the probably the number one question that I get asked and have gotten asked, and I'm really dating this to like my post awakening kind of last 12, 13 years or so, but
Okay.
since I entered full-time service work.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So probably the one I get asked the most is, where are you from? Where are you from?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Now, the funny thing about this is, and this is a very common question, it's probably one of the more common questions that everybody gets asked.
Mm-hmm.
It gets to be a really funny question to get asked, though, when you're going through a spiritual awakening, because the answer to it isn't always so obvious.
Uh-huh.
Right? And the funny thing about the reason people ask this question at all is it's a way that people actually relate from personality to personality. Mm-hmm. So it establishes a starting point where somebody can now build a new construct file on which to classify that person.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we do this for we're doing this all the time, the way that we're actually building in our, in our mind, how all these relationships work. And you meet somebody and it's like it's a little computer system. You're opening up a little new file in your mind. You put Kara on it. Okay. I just met Kara and where's she's from.
Yeah.
Right. And now I can start building a
stack.
A stack. Yeah. So now the funny thing is on the receiving side of it, it's a question that the personality construct has an answer for. Mm-hmm. And so what happens if you dismantle
the personality?
Yeah. Then
it becomes complicated.
It becomes complicated, right? Yeah. And or what if you have dismantled or rebuilt, or maybe you're trying on a new personality, in which case this new personality construct may have come to you while you might have been born and raised in Indiana, all that sort of stuff. You go through a whole rebirth experience in Hawaii, mm-hmm. right? And then if somebody asks you immediately after that, where are you from? You're going to feel like you're from Hawaii.
Yeah.
That's your new origin point.
Yeah.
Right?
Let me take off her. Sorry, let me quickly.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Now, incidentally, this really came up to me a lot while I was doing these big sand artwork. It's big old 50-yard long murals in the sand in
Hawaii.
Hawaii. So I'm out there and I'm drawing all that in, and that would obviously just capture people's attention, and they would get mesmerized by like at the scale of it, because you almost had to be looking out of one of the hotel windows down at the beach to see the full picture. And people would be looking around, and then they'd be like, where are you from? It's just such an enigma. Then they really want to know where you're from. And at that point, there I am in Hawaii, and I've done so much deconstructing and reconstructing. I really didn't know how to answer that question. And it's like, okay, is it where I lived most recently? Was it where I graduated high school or college? Was it where I've lived the most? Is it
your childhood,
where I was born?
Yeah.
Or was it, the place that's most fond in my heart? And for me, those are all different places. And then those are all just earthly spots, let alone multidimensional self and a greater understanding of, that. So I would typically, I was wrestled with it. Finally, I just said, since I was on the sand and I was drawing Disney characters, that's what I did. I did Disney characters and mandalas. And I happened to really grow up in Southern California, in Fullerton, California, just about 5-6 miles away from Disneyland. I started telling people when they asked me where I'm from, I said Disneyland. And that would just at least be a funny way. People would chuckle. They either think I'm making a joke because I'm drawing Disney, or other people would be like, oh, he's from SoCal, know, and they would get it. And that was, and the reason I didn't really want to answer that, because as soon as I did answer it, it would start building a new construct for me. And I didn't want, I was writing this place where I didn't want to have any permanent or constructs, and I wanted to just stay fluid and be an enigma or whatever. So, anyways, I ended up settling on that. Nowadays, people ask me where I'm from, and I'll probably just, wherever my current residence at this moment, it's, in Indianapolis. I just apply it that way. Because, and the funny thing is that it is only the personality or the ego that even cares about this at all. Because this is, because it's a funny thing, because when all those constructs are gone, there's only one answer to that question, and it's the same answer for everyone. So no one would ever, souls don't ask each other where they're from, because everybody knows, and there's only one answer, and that we're from God.
That's so interesting. And you're right. I mean, it is like this, it's a personality to personality, but there is, I think, a reaching out in an attempt to connect.
Of course. Of course.
The only reason really that you ever would ask somebody where they're from, when they give the answer, you try to figure out how it fits into your life. Oh, I've been there, or I know somebody from there, or my aunt lives there, or whatever. If it's in your case, you were born in Brazil, I've got nothing, then where? Because I have no connection to Brazil at all, But yeah, so we do, the personality then tries to see, okay, how are we connected through location,
Yep. Yeah. And it's the way that we relate to each other, and we relate based on, we're finding common ground wherever that might be.
Right.
Careers, interests, places we've been, lived.
Right. Yeah.
Whatever. Right. Yeah.
Totally. Oh, I love that.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
So mine?
Your turn.
Okay. So I get asked a lot, do your kids meditate? Or people assume that my kids meditate and they're like, how do you get your kids to meditate?
Right.
Some version of this.
Right.
And so the answer is that my kids don't really meditate.
Right.
But it's really fun to see them, like they notice when meditation, like they'll like sit in the lotus position. Like I've got a picture of my daughter in a like one of those pop-up like water fountain structures, where you see the kids like running through, and she's like got this water spraying up on her, and she's in the lotus position, like in a meditation kind of pose. Or if it comes up on TV, like we were watching The Office last night, and Michael Scott was having The Office like all sit on the floor, and he was oming, and they're like, "Mama," but I did find like when I was new to meditation, when I lived in Italy, I was kind of trying to get them to adopt it because I knew how good it was just for their nervous system and how it could help with anxiety and so forth. And so I was trying to implement this practice of mindfulness time before, or even just taking some deep breaths or something before they went to school or before bedtime. And at least at that time, and this was years and years ago, now they're 15 and 12. They were much littler at that time, but they could not finish fast enough. And it became this like struggle of, come on, no, you're going to feel better. Just sit down, quit. You guys stop arguing. Just relax. Everybody relax.
You sound very relaxed as you're saying that.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. So eventually I was like, this is so counterproductive. So I kind of learned through that experience and through other experiences of just like, hey, let them have their own path. And if it's interesting to them, then they'll pick it up. And I can only be a role model for them. So I've mentioned on the podcast several times that my daughter has scoliosis. And so I've been doing a lot of different types of therapies to help her with that. Some of which are energetic, and many of that, like any energetic work I do on her, and I do that to her almost every day. So she's very familiar with like energetic healing work. And that's just something that's sort of seeping into her reality through this experience. And we're also doing other types of interventions too. But so it's something, and more, it's in their world anyway. There's schools, my daughter's in middle school, and they do mindful minutes or mindful Mondays or something like that, where they take a few moments to just breathe and be quiet, which she complains about. But but it's in their world. And then they've got just the example of seeing that it's important to me, and whatever they notice about me versus other people in their world. So that's really been my approach, has been just more of like leadership in terms of, hey, here it is, this is a thing and it's helpful, but really not trying to force anything on them. And so as such, they really don't have like a proper meditation practice.
Okay. But you do, I like the perspective though of just of like equipping kids, with a tool that you're not forcing them to do anything with it.
Yeah.
But it's like, here, you're going to have this, and this is to help you. Who knows what life is going to bring at you?
Yeah. Right.
And then having kids be like, just saying, okay, this is a way to how to calm, restore, so that, because things are going to, anxieties, all that's going to come. But if you have a tool just to address that along the way, then it doesn't have to lead to some big crises where all of it has to get dealt with at some
Right.
future point. You know, if
Yeah.
you can just do a little bit. That's great. I think also kids should learn to swim.
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And then defend themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Martial arts.
Yeah, not that, but just even if it's just a simple self-defense course. So, I mean, I think
Yeah.
these are like 3 things that are great tools for everybody to know. It's how to center yourself in your space.
Uh-huh.
Okay. How to, and then how to defend your space.
Mm-hmm.
And then.
And how to swim your space.
Yeah. And then how to survive if you're in water.
Yeah.
That's just an important one.
Yeah. 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 Good. All right. Well, what's the next
What's the next one?
asked question?
Frequently asked question. Well, it kind of picks up where the other question left off.
Okay.
Well, where am I from? Well, I'm the same place you're from. We're all from the same place. We're all from God, right? The question I do get asked a lot is, what is God to you? And it's funny because as soon as in the getting to know people, right? Of course, yeah, you're trying to find points to relate. It doesn't really take too long, generally, somebody talking to me to realize that there's something spiritual about the way I talk. True? Or
yeah.
So inevitably, this topic comes up, and again, now you're dealing with one of the. That's a really interesting question when somebody asks, what is God to you? Because now we're talking about this is the thing, the origin of it all, and also what we hold most sacred is these notions, and also when there isn't a point of agreement on that, this of, oh, that God is my God too. Guess what humans are known to do?
Fight.
No. And I think it's because of how deep that sacredness is that if that feels threatened at all, then then there's that turns into a war of good versus evil real fast. And the funny thing is that actually doesn't have anything to do with the soul or the truth. That has to do with a misunderstanding of personality constructs, because that's where that's coming from to begin with. Yeah. Right? Yeah. But anyways, it is a good question. And of course, and in a moment here, I'm gonna give you the quick answer, because it's actually God's really easy to, concept, just to sum up in a couple words, right? Yeah. Yeah. Good. I can't wait for that. I know, right? There's this little special gift here. No, but and it's it's not something that's easy to put into words. And it is something that's kind of sacred, and this is also kind of on my mind, because I just did get asked this question a few days ago by the FedEx driver. No, sorry, Amazon driver. Really? Yes. Huh. Yeah. Actually, I said something, and that got him so thinking. He drove away, and then he wanted to come back, but he didn't have the address anymore. It took him 3 weeks of driving around and knocking on and going up doors and stuff, and finally found me again. You're kidding me. No. Wow. Wow. What had you said to him? I piqued his interest. He had seen this, and then I just showed him the pyramid. The pyramid. Oh. Yeah. And who knows what else I said. You're like, whatever.
Who knows?
Who knows?
I'm always saying stuff.
All right. And anyways, and he's now become a fan of the podcast.
Oh,
so,
no kidding!
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's great. So, but anyway, so he has to bust out this question of hey, what's God to you, or what are your thoughts on God, or whatever, right? And ultimately, this is a question that everyone, and it's our own like God-given right to come to our own understanding of this. You don't have to take anybody else's word for it. Is everyone has a right to just to discover and relate for oneself. Okay, that's the beauty of it. Now, so the way I am answering this is, and I'm going to just kind of I'm going to direct it to you. Okay, you and me. All right. So let's say that we're going to wave a little magic wand. Okay, and it's big universe. So there's lots of stuff there to see. So let's say I am given as much time as I need, billions of years or however long. Okay, and I'm also given equipment with sufficient numbers of bodies, whatever, lifetimes, long life, whatever, a spaceship, it's whatever it is I need in order to go out and explore it. Okay. And so let's say, however much time that takes, it's going to be a long time. But gosh darn it, I go and I explore it, and point arrives where I've seen it all. Right? So, wow, I have seen it all. Wow, what a amazing journey. Seen it all. Yeah. And so in a sense, I could say truthfully, I could say that I know it all, in that I've seen it all. And so I can relate, like we're talking to everything that exists within the universe. So I kind of know it all. Now, let's say, Kara, you're like, I'm going to go on this journey too. And so there you go off exploring until you reach a point where you've seen it all too. And then we meet together there in the middle. And I'm like, wow, did you see it all? And you're like, yeah, I saw it all. I'm like, I saw it all too. And now we can like powwow over a cuppa, right? And we can chat about, how'd you like this or that? Or we would have all this whole universe of ability to relate. So how deep would our connection be in terms of that relation when we have this huge, vast array? Okay. And so you've seen it all. I've seen it all. I could say I know it all. You could say you know it all. And yet there's one more thing, though, is that my experience wasn't the exact same as your experience.
Yeah.
Okay? So although we might say we know it all, there's a difference between that and being all-knowing.
Yeah.
So what is God? God is the one who has seen it all, not just one way, but all ways.
Yeah.
And the vastness, when you all of a sudden explode how many different points of view and perspectives there are in the universe, and you go, oh, the computation, the level of intelligence, and the energy to do that is
right.
It's a whole nother level. And no matter how big we are, that is always bigger. And that's both where we come from and where we are going.
Yeah, that also, I really love that. And it just shows that, it's within everything too. So it's not like this other thing. It's like, you know it all because you've done it all. And I know it all because I've done it all in this form, in that version.
Right.
And there's the overarching, or like the thread that is going through everything that is experiencing everything that is God.
That is it.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. And so, yes, we can't get away from it, which is silly.
Yeah.
But we can think that we can.
Yeah.
We can feel like it. We can have the experience, so-called, of not being a part of that. But, that's not the truth. That's the illusion.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Beautiful.
All right.
Okay. Another one that comes up a lot is about guides. So who are somebody's guides, or how do they know who to, so in my journey of teaching meditation or coaching, for quite a while, I was teaching in other people's places, so like in yoga studios, or I teach in a school district, actually, with the teachers in the school district. And so I have tried to be pretty secular when I lead meditation, so that it's not too spiritual, just to be respectful of the environment. Well, now I'm doing more things like just of my own accord, where I have a membership program, for example. And so I'm leading meditations, but I'm not I don't have to quote unquote answer to anybody. I can feel into the group and what people are looking for and ready for. And so it has opened me up more to being able to kind of invite in that spiritual element that I've sort of held at bay in other circumstances. And so I will encourage people to, as we're starting a meditation, to kind of put a sphere of light around them and invite in their guides. And so this can be kind of a stumbling block for people, because then they inherently sort of, and I can relate to this too, feeling like, well, who are my guides? Who am I even talking to? Do I need to know, okay, I want Phil to come in, and I, need to know that who they are, what they look like, what their names are, what their roles are, and so forth. And so for me, the way that it's from my own perspective, it's a constant evolution, in terms of who I feel resonance with. And so there are beings or guides that I feel connection with at certain parts of my journey, who I will bring into my meditation or invite into my meditation, who then maybe don't feel as relevant after a while, that feel like maybe they were there to support one part of it. So how do you know who that is? Well, for me, the way that it's played out has been just paying attention. When beings are coming into my awareness, and not meaning, I don't think I've ever had the situation where I'm in meditation and a being comes to me in my third eye or in front of me or whatever, or I hear a name or anything. It hasn't really happened for me like that. More often it will be something that I'm reading, something that I'm watching, something that I'm hearing, something that comes up in conversation, but I notice that it comes up from different places. And I'm that's happened with Kuan Yin, for example, where I'm there was period of time where I had no idea who that even was. And then suddenly I'm getting hit with Kuan Yin, Kuan Yin, Kuan Yin. And I'm like, okay, maybe there's something here for me. Like, let me try that out, you know?
Can I chime in
Yeah,
for
please.
something? And the funny thing about it is that you just mentioned Kuan Yin, right? And she was also a guide, showed up for me in my journey as well. The funny thing is that now this podcast itself is actually adding out into a collective field of material that's out there that Kuan Yin can use to actually speak to somebody.
Ooh.
Do you get it? You see? Because somebody here is going to be listening to this, and they've already, Kuan Yin has hit their radar, a couple little things here and there, and then they're going to be sitting here right now. They're going, right now, somebody's there going, what?
Yes.
What? Right. Yes. We're talking to you.
Totally, exactly like this. Thank you for pointing that out, because this is like how it works.
This is how it works.
This is how it has worked for me too. And I think, and I would love to hear your perspective on this, because I have a feeling that for you, there have been times where you actually have had beings kind of enter into your field where you're like, oh, and you're getting information in a way that I haven't experienced. But I think and so let's hang a lantern on that. But in terms of getting asked that question and then what it means for the person who is asking, they may be at a place where they don't have any frame of reference for any guides. You know, they may have grown up with kind of like a feeling of, well, I'm familiar with like a guardian angel. So I feel that I have a guardian angel, but I don't know who that is. And I've never seen them. I just feel like I'll find out when I die that this person, this being has been walking with me and helping me and protecting me and so forth.
Which is true.
Right. So, but I think like I feel it's important that we don't hold ourselves back from feeling like, well, if I don't know, then I must not have guides. So either feeling like, you know, if you had some, you would know, or that we need to, maybe you can feel a presence or you trust that there's a presence, but you don't have any frame of reference for who it is. That's okay too, because that's part of the discovery and it's part of the journey and it's part of the fun of it. You know, is this like, oh, here's another reference point. Let me see how this feels for me. And kind of just letting that, because I feel like a big part of just the whole purpose of what we're doing here, a lot of it is discovery, and it's kind of, it's a discovery of who we are and it's a construction of who we are.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes, exactly.
So it's not, I mean, in my opinion, it's not necessarily like there's a destiny necessarily of like, you need to find this role and fulfill it, so much as it's like, you also are a creator who is here creating your reality and constructing, you know, what you're going to get out of your time here and what, you know, how that mashes up with a higher purpose and so forth.
Yeah.
So do you want to share a bit about your guides and?
Oh, that's funny. Have I shared the story of the pit? Have I showed you the pit story?
I know that story.
I don't know if it's
talked about it on the
podcast. Okay,
it's been a while.
All right, I'll just jam it real quick. I'd already kind of been introduced to my team. I know I didn't really know their names, and actually early on I did do something that was like, whoa, really surprised me, the response. And I had already connected with a couple of them and stuff like that, but I was aware that there's more forces and presences around me and things. And I'm like, I just don't know their names or, and so, but I was actually doing a fireside prayer in the woods that night, and where I was just entering gratitude and thankful. And so I just included gratitude um, uh, for everyone who has helped me, seen and unseen, known and unknown.
Mm-hmm.
And immediately all the trees and everything just started quaking and shaking.
Wow.
Yeah. And everything was just exploded, was like dancing. The trees are dancing. And I was
That's
like,
amazing.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, cool. All right.
Yeah.
So we don't, we're not really expected to from this case. So from the non-physical and the spiritual realms, we're not expected to be able to know names. Besides, when the names might be like they're not even like in English, or
Yeah,
what? Or you're
right.
right, or obviously not in English, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Anyhow, there's another. So I had actually come to a point where came to rely on my guides all the time. I didn't know all of their names. I could just feel their presence, and when I called them, boom, they just showed up like a security detail or something. They all came in and just surrounded me, and I was just strong enough to face whatever was. I was whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was whatever was the cause for me to call them in.
Mm-hmm.
And so one day I was in meditation. I was just doing a body scan, which I did a lot frequently at that time. And then I hit this frequency that was like, oh, what is that? That's nasty. And it's pretty good, or my abilities to develop, where I just move my consciousness and I'm just floating down. I can kind of see what's going, and I just go right into that frequency. I'm like, well, let's go find out what that is. And next thing I know, I feel like this sense of falling, and I plummet, and I visually, and I'm in this pit, and it's just like pitch black in there, and there's like this snarling of like demon horde, kind of like the mines of Moria in Lord of the Rings or something. It was like I'm like, is this place? And I'm like, oh, well, better bring my team in here. And so I called for my team, and then nobody showed up.
Aww.
And I'm like, what? And I kind of looked up. I looked up from in the pit, turned my awareness, and it's like there's this little hole that I come through, and I could see like all my team are just standing on. They're all standing around the hole, looking down at me, like freaking Bugs Bunny cartoon or something. I'm like, what's up? And they look at me like, we ain't going down in there. That's your job. And I'm like, what? Okay, yeah. And so then I'm like, uh-oh. And so, but so at that moment, though, that's in those moments when you're like when all hope is lost, but that kind of place. And that's where it was just up to me at that point, amidst that environment that was full of fear, is to remember where I'm from.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that I'm not of that place, that where I'm from. And where are we from? We're from God. Remember that. And all of a sudden that drops in what I call a God bomb that just went poof and just vaporized the whole demon horde and just cleared that whole thing out. And the interesting thing is that from that day forward, I can still capable of feeling fear, but I'm no longer terrified of anything.
Trial by
Fire.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's the real gift. And that's the reason why the team, my guys were like, no, he needs to do this on his own.
Yeah.
So that he. Yeah, because that's how we grow and get stronger.
Right.
So that's just one thing for people to go. If you're calling out for help and you're not getting it, it doesn't mean you don't, because you don't have help or whatnot. And these are things you got to sort out along the way.
Yeah.
And but sometimes things are just happening because what we can be lost in the waves and think we're drowning, when the truth, the reality is all we need to do is stand up.
Yeah.
And the universe typically doesn't swarm to help you, if you're lying down on the sand and complaining that you're drowning.
Yeah.
No, it's going to say stand up.
Wow. Well, that's really powerful. Thank you. Thank you for joining me on the 200th episode.
Oh, yes. Well, no. Thank you for joining me, Kara, on this 200th episode.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, you've been a beautiful guest.
Thank you.
Really, really appreciate the work you're doing. I wish you the best of luck and success as you go on for your next 100. And perhaps we'll see you again then.
Maybe next month at the rate we're going.
I know, right? I'd be like, wait a second. No. Something's really up now. What are you doing? What kind of wormholes are we in?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Michael.
Oh, thank you. Thank you all, too.
Yeah, and thank you.